Hey everyone, it's Stephanie again, and you're tuned into the review of Married at First Sight, Season 8, Episode 8. I think it's Episode 8. So, this was the trust episode where they usually do the phone swap and talk about, exes and making sure that they can trust each other and all that jazz. So, let's just jump right in. I'll start with Luke and Kate. Luke and Kate continue to concern me. We saw them, they did the trust episode where they did the swap, and I don't think anything really came of it. I feel like Kate checked out of that whole experience. I feel like he wasn't really into it. I don't think Luke is into it anyways. And it's sad to watch because Kate is so desperate to make this thing work, like by any means. And it's a little bit of a train wreck. We see them meet with Dr. Pepper, and Dr. Pepper comes in because she had heard from one of the producers that he said that she pressures him to kiss her, and he also is concerned about her drinking, and basically alludes to the fact that he thinks she may have a drinking problem. Now, after they process it with Dr. Pepper, he apologizes because he doesn't think she really has a problem, but basically her level of drinking is uncomfortable for him. And later on in the episode, we find that it's because he had a friend who was killed by a drunk driver, so he's not big into drinking. And if we roll it back, there's so many things that are wrong with this whole situation. Luke has communication issues, and we're seeing, I think we've been seeing a lot of the reason why he's single, or he was single for so long, but his communication issues are rampant because here he is talking to everyone except his spouse. And I see Kate get really upset. We all saw her get really upset because he's not talking to her and she doesn't know what's going on, and she's literally grasping at anything that looks like a relationship, and she's also confused by mixed messaging. So with the drinking thing, I feel that was a big mistake for him to take it so far and maybe judge her so harshly on how she drinks, how much she drinks based on how he drinks. So for someone who doesn't drink, obviously someone who drinks is going to be seen a little differently from two people who just casually drink. But the allegations that she has a problem were concerning because I feel like he's just making a list of why this isn't going to work out. I think the list started at the altar, but he's making a list of why it's not going to work out, and then he's justifying it with this trauma that he experienced, which I'm sorry for him, but it's not fair to judge her on, what she's doing because of your experience and how you feel about drinking. And of course, the package that they shows her drinking every time, but if I drink 3 times in my life and you show that back to back, then it looks like I drink a lot. So I really don't even want to say, does she drink a lot? Does she not? Because we really don't know. And because I've worked with addicts, I know that it's something that's very serious. So I hope that doesn't really cause issues for her if that isn't something that's a true concern. And we're seeing him struggle to communicate basic things, and this is supposed to be his wife, and he keeps saying that she's important, she's valuable, but we see that she's not. We also see that he's still uncomfortable with kissing her. I did go back and see the tongue out after the kiss. I didn't see it the first time, but a lot of you guys commented. So I saw that. It just feels very forced, very ingenuine. But I do understand Kate's issue with the mixed messages because she's saying they're laying together. His shirt is off. They're, doing a little bit of physical intimacy in terms of touch and hanging out together, and then it doesn't go anywhere. So I think for the sake of both of them, it should be all or nothing. If you're not ready to be physically intimate at all, then don't. But don't kind of put this facade that you're working towards something when you're kind of checked out. So it was really hard to watch. It was really hard to watch Kate with her friends because her friends are saying what we're all saying. There's something going on. And her friends probably don't know as much, and they probably haven't seen as much at that point because we're watching this months later. But they're concerned and they're thinking maybe he's into it, but he's just not into you yet, and it could go there. But I think from this perspective, we're able to see that chances are they're not going to stay together because he was never really interested in committing to her and is not attracted to her. And then there's all these other things. So I foresee other issues coming up. their issue isn't about trust. This episode about trust, there was so many other things. I think if there's anything about trust, it's that I can't trust you to be authentic in this experience because you really don't want to be here. And so, really they should kind of pull the plug, because it's just a waste of their time and a waste of, for sure, her emotion. I don't necessarily think that Luke is emotionally invested. So that's Luke and Kate. But that was like kind of a lot to take in, because the drinking allegations are huge. I mean, that brings in a host of other questions and issues and things of that nature. And I think that she is so desperate to try to make this work that she's just hanging in there, trying to make sense of it. But they really probably should pull the plug on that relationship. So we'll see. Like I said, I don't really watch the previews because I don't want it to like distract me from the current review. But yeah, I don't foresee it getting any better. So that's Luke and Kate. Let's see, Will and Jasmine. So Will and Jasmine, they traded the phones, they joked around a lot. Nothing really came of it. We got to see Luke, no, I'm sorry, God, I'm still stuck on Luke. We got to see Will talk a little bit about how he is attracted to the intellectual side of her. And even before, Will was not on the Unfiltered show this episode, but some of the other three guys were on the Unfiltered right before the new episode aired, and they basically said the same thing, that you can tell Will is a little more of an intellectual. So what we're seeing is that Jasmine is used to a certain type of guy, and that type of guy probably has a tendency to just operate maybe just off of the physical. So she does not even know how to do anything outside of just be there and be attractive or have a man attracted to her based on the way that she looks. And so we're seeing that disconnect because she is not using her intellect in whatever way that is. That could be so many different ways, because they kept saying, even on Unfiltered and then throughout the episode, well, I have a master's and I'm smart and I have my own business, or I have my own home. It's not about the accomplishments that you can pretty much list on a resume. It's about tapping into that connection with someone. So where Jasmine needs to work is stepping outside of what she's used to. And I get it. If you're used to just being there and people applaud for that, then that's cool. But then you might need to just change the way that you're doing that and really listen to what he's saying in terms of what he wants. Like even the fantasy, because they did questions towards the end of the episode. The fantasy character that he would want was like a sexy librarian. So he's definitely like very much a sapiosexual, and she needs to kind of listen and kind of take heed. But I will say that I still want Will to just have a little bit more of a pulse. We have to work together. We have to speak each other's love language. So although I know you need this, and I need to recognize you need this, and I need to pay attention to that, you also need to kind of recognize that does not do it for me. So you need to step it up a little bit. He's very lax, and we kind of knew that going in. And so where it's like, Jasmine needs to do this, well, Will also needs to do this. Will also needs to tap into what maybe her love language, which might be a more innately passionate or more innately physical. We don't know yet, but that's basically what she's doing. But I still think that they have the opportunity to be very compatible. I think it'll happen at some point. They have a host of things that they need to work on, but they're also a new couple, like literally having met 3-4 weeks ago. I mean, couples who've been together for years are continuously working because relationships and marriage are evolutionary. So those things will continue to change. And they just have to work together and work ahead and start to figure out what works for them. And maybe aggressive worked in past relationships, and so you'll have to calm down a little bit and pull it back. Maybe laid back worked in past relationships with someone who was aggressive, but now you need to maybe step it up a little bit. So I think they'll figure out their groove as long as they are committed to doing that. So that's Will and Jasmine. So next we have AJ and Stephanie. AJ and Stephanie, they did the phone swap as well. Nothing really came of it. They're having a good time together. They did like this cute little idea of basically using their bodies for art, and they got painted and laid on the canvas. It was super cute. They had a good time. What sticks out for me in last night's episode with AJ and Stephanie is AJ and him being very short and snippy and angry with Stephanie when she couldn't pick a restaurant. There are two sides to this that I see. I can understand getting a little hangry. Okay, I will raise my hand and say I have been hangry as well. If my husband was here, he would totally applaud for that because he gets it. But I feel like AJ needs to learn how to communicate more effectively. Clearly, she was taking a long time making a decision. They should have planned appropriately, but he should have said, listen, babe, like, I'm starving. Like, I'm at a point where I'm just not going to be that great of a person. Because we've all experienced that. When people get really hungry, they're short on patience. So, like, the barrage of where we could go and all this time, like, you don't have it. So, in one instance, I understood AJ. But he really needs to learn how to communicate effectively because he just, like a light switch, he turns off, he snaps, he turns into somebody else, he justifies bad behavior, and then he just gets over it, and there's never really an acknowledgement of what could have been done better. He needs to learn to communicate more effectively, and he also puts her in a space where she doesn't feel safe. If you look at her face when he turns into this person, she is very unsure about what to do next. Then she becomes very malleable so that there's nothing that really influences him to get even more upset. And I would hope that if they are together, she gets into a space where she starts to call him on his crap and say, okay, I get it, you're hungry, but like, don't be a jerk, because it's not going to last long. At some point, she'll get tired of walking around on eggshells, and he won't, make any improvement because he's not going to be challenged. He even said something to the fact of like, this is the first, when he finally made the decision, because sometimes you just have to do that. Babe, we're going to XYZ because I cannot pick another place. He says something like, this is the first single decision he's made in a month, which was really hurtful and really obnoxious. If you want to make single decisions, you should be single. Yes, it can get annoying, especially when you go from making decisions yourself and doing whatever you want to do, and then overnight you're married and the decisions change, especially for them. Because if you've been in a couple and you get married, chances are you've had that transition of making decisions with someone. But them, it literally is overnight. But get over yourself. It's hurtful. It's rude. You need to pick if you want to be married and make joint decisions, or if you don't. And it doesn't have to be this thing where it's like, this is the first time I've made a single decision. You will never make a single decision unless you're single. Even if you're the one, sometimes me and my husband will joke around and say, oh, I made the executive decision, meaning like I picked, I said yes for us, where we both know we're comfortable speaking for each other. But it's still a decision on us because it'll affect us. So when he said that, I felt like, I really was pissed about that, because I felt like I get his frustration. He's hungry, so he's getting to a point where he's losing it. He's not communicating effectively though, so he could do better, but it's probably super annoying when you're already hungry. But I didn't like him snapping, and then I felt like making that comment is just so immature. So for me, with her, she should be guarded. And if we circle back to the beginning of the episode, she already has trust issues because, she's been in some relationships where she's been cheated on. So she expressed that with him and said, hey, it's going to take me time because I've experienced these things where I thought it was going great, and out of nowhere it became something else. So I already have trust in this area, but now she is going to have trust issues in that area. But now she's going to have more trust issues with not knowing who he is at any given time. And that will get very old very quickly. So I hope that AJ works on himself. I think she needs to work on maybe stepping up a little bit and just challenging him in the moment, because he seems to say, well, I get upset and I move on. So when somebody does that, chances are cognitively they're not experiencing that window where they're recognizing their partner's experience. It's just all about them. Some people can recognize, hey, I'm not in a good space, and I see what it's doing to someone else. I don't think AJ even sees that. It happens so quick. So she needs to challenge him. It's kind of like when you say, you always do that, and your partner will say, well, when? Name one time. And of course and in the moment you can't really think of it, but if you'd call them to the carpet in the moment, they'd be able to start to see and be more aware of their patterns. So I would say that, and really for any of us, if you find yourself in that repeated cycle with your partner, start challenging them appropriately and helping them to be aware and recognize their issues, and then it'll help you to kind of not have to suck it up if you tend to be the one who's a little more passive and have to deal with bad behavior. So that is Stephanie and AJ. Last but not least, we have Keith and Kristine. So Keith and Kristine were the only one who kind of struggled with the phone swap. God, I was yelling at the TV because I just couldn't understand how Keith could be so obtuse about why she had a problem with these old, very adult photos of his ex-girlfriend and his phone. And I don't understand why he took so long to recognize that he should get rid of them. Like, it really irritated me that Pastor Cal had to do a come to Jesus moment on this phone for him to say, you know what? I will delete those pictures. Like, why do you still have them? For me, it gives me pause because those are still in your phone. You still have a connection to them and you don't want to delete them, or you didn't want to delete them. What for? If you're sitting here with your new wife, everything could be new, but you're also not with this person. And I picked up on the fact that this woman broke up with him. At least that's what I thought, broke up with him. So maybe that relationship was still left unfinished for him and he moved on and then got on his show and then got married, but maybe that stuff isn't put to bed. That was super frustrating. And he, you know, from a male perspective, a lot of men will say, well, we have those pictures in our phones and we don't even think about it. So let me give you that. Let's say I will give you that, because I have pictures of my phone that, because Keith said he never deletes his pictures. I get it, because I still have pictures in my phone from like 5 years ago, because I have the space, so I don't think about it. If somebody stumbled upon something in this phone swap and they were uncomfortable, the best thing to do would be to get rid of it. Not make the excuses you don't delete your phone and you don't delete your pictures and you don't think about it. If I'm saying, okay, I hear you, but do you still have a connection to this, and why don't you delete it, and you still have issues, now it becomes something completely different. So I couldn't even support him on saying, you know, he doesn't think about it, he doesn't delete his pictures, because I'm telling you to delete it right now. So that was concerning for me, and it just gave me pause to how that relationship ended. And I love that Kristine said, why did you guys break up? You know, she was prompting before she, and you could see the wheels turning for her, but before she made a decision on if she wanted to throw something across the table, she was like, okay, why did you guys break up? Tell me a little bit about this. But I could see it being very off-putting to just see a bunch of photos like that. And Keith has joked a couple of times that he wanted somebody tall with a big butt. So it's a bunch of tall ass on his photo on his iPhone, and it doesn't look like your wife. So it's super disrespectful, and it's just inappropriate that there is even a pause. So Kristine, of course, is concerned. They have a conversation with Pastor Cal, and it ends up pretty well. And he even says, hey, you know, he wasn't hiding it. And so she has a moment where she's like, okay, he wasn't hiding it, so that's not an issue. But I just hated that he took so long, and it just reminded me of his immaturity. We really misjudged Kristine. We thought, because she presented herself as Queen Kristine, we're like, oh my God, this girl's gonna be so, you know, over the top and too immature people. She's really a pleasure to watch. Getting to know her, you know, on this show, if they matched anybody with him, it was a good person to match, because, and I said it the first review, that she's going to challenge him. When she said, hey, you want to go to the gym on the honeymoon? And he's like, no. And she's like, oh, we're going to the gym. I love that she did that, because she's going to push him to like grow up and be a better man, because he has been so coddled that he just doesn't get it. Even in the most, what we appear to believe to be the simplest, most obvious things, he doesn't get it. And I don't necessarily know that he's malicious with it. He's just super obtuse. So that was Keith and Kristine. I think they're still doing well. Although I just ranted about that bothering me, I think they're moving forward. They're still doing well. You know, on Unfiltered, they were joking that Keith barely makes it to events because he's home with his wife, and you know, they just seem to be having a good time together and enjoying each other. So as long as they continue to have good conversation, I think they'll be fine. You know, we'll see what comes up for them, but they're not necessarily the most ideal match in terms of what she wanted, but you know, sometimes what we end up with is not necessarily who we thought we would, and that ends up being the best thing for us. So I'm an optimist for love. So I'm going to continue to be optimistic as we watch the rest of the season. So that's it, guys. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, like, and I'll definitely be chatting with you guys throughout the week. Everyone have a wonderful week.